Thanks for staying with us. So recently, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, threatened to commence deduction of taxes directly from the bank account of defaulters. According to reports, the warning became necessary following rising cases of willful and illegal withholding of taxes by corporations, ministries, departments, agencies, that's the MDAs, and other agents of collection. Now, join us on the show to discuss is the Chief Tax Collector of the Federation, the Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mohammed Nami. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So I found this very interesting when we read that the willful withholding of taxes. I know the illegal, yeah, but are there people willfully withholding taxes, not paying? And how do you define willful? And how do you get them to begin to pay taxes?
Thank you very much. That is the extent of the publications we did recently. We observe that we have appointed, or the federal government through Federal Inland Revenue Service has appointed taxpayers as agents, companies, the ministry, department, and agencies of government as agent of collection. And the moment the law requires that the moment you collect these taxes or you deduct these taxes at source from payments you made to contractees or by contractees to contractor, you deduct certain taxes and then you remit them to the coffers of the government, which is either federation, which is the federation account. But the thing that the practice has been, instead of these taxes remitted as they were taken or deducted, they're kept by either the ministry, department, agencies of the same government that we work for, or by the taxpayers who are companies limited by shares, PLCs, and they continue to trade with it, and until you go after them, they don't remit them to the federation account. So that's what made by willful default.
Right. Right.
Chairman Mohammed, so I know that you announced some time ago that Nigeria lost about $178 billion to tax evasion by multinationals. And I think, you know, making this publication that you now have to start deducting from source, for me, I think it's a step in the right direction. But I am worried. How does the Constitution back it? I hope we're not, having any human rights, company rights laws against it according to our Constitution.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. If you look at the publication very well, we first of all drew the attention of the taxpaying public to Section 78, Section 79, Section 80, Section 81, and Section 82 of the Companies Income Tax Act, that is CITA, Cap C21, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, LFN 2004, as amended. And we also drew the taxpaying public attention to Section 13 of the Value-Added Tax Act, as amended in 2004, which imposed obligations on MDS as agent of collection to deduct or withhold taxes on payments made and remit the taxes so deducted or withheld to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So that is the foundation of whatever we are doing today. And for clarity, if we look at the provisions of the law that we have based on this, the Section 78 suggests that for any interest payment that a company or body corporate is doing, except the interest that is on interbank deposit or royalty, you are expected to deduct 10% as withholding tax from that payment you are doing. Payments are deducted based on this law, but they are kept by the taxpayer or the agent of the government that operate business in Nigeria. Section 79 also, which is deduction of tax on rent. Whenever a rent becomes payable, the company or entity paying such rent is expected to pay or to deduct and remit withholding tax at the same 10%. Such deductions are made based on this law and kept or not remitted to Federal Inland Revenue Service. We also have Section 80, which is a directive to companies paying dividend to deduct withholding tax at 10%. But those deductions are equally done and kept by the people that deduct, the companies that deduct without remitting same to the federation account. So from what I've said, I think there is a basis for this deduction in the first place, but there is a willful intention or the refusal of this government appointed agents not to remit this to the federation account. So these are the monies we are going to go after. We are not going to say you have 10 million in your bank account, let's take it arbitrarily. No, we are going to follow this process. Right. What is Section 78 tell you? What is the provision of Section 79 and Section 80? Then when you come to value-added tax, what responsibility that has been spelled out in the Value-Added Tax Act, particularly Section 13 of the of the Act. So when you deduct taxes and you don't remit based on the provisions of law, that is when we are going to go after you.
All right, go ahead.
So I find it funny, sir, when because you mentioned now earlier that MDAs also hold taxes and they deduct but they don't remit. I find it funny when I hear this, considering that these are agencies of government, they are government also, and then there's supposed to be this synergy that the TSA should have brought between you and them, and the books should be easily accessed by you.
And that is the main reason why we did the publication. It is not a possibility that it is actually impossible for you to expect, as an agency of government, to expect the appointed agents, that is the owners of businesses, that is companies limited by shares, to remit these taxes while it is you as the managers of ministry, department, agencies, you are finding it difficult to remit same. So that is what we have done. These monies we are collecting is meant for the 3 tiers of government, be it the local government, state, or at the federal level. So it is actually funny for us to have observed that the ministry, department, agencies of government that we collect these monies for, or the state government that will collect this money for, when they give out contract, they usually keep this money after they have deducted it from the contractor's payment and refuse to remit same. So we feel instead of applying the position of law only on the limited liability company or companies doing business in Nigeria, we should also make them behave responsibly by deducting these taxes as at one due and also remitting them timely. It is when you do that they are able to implement their budget, they are able to provide for social the infrastructure required by our citizens.
All right, let me go on a quick break, because what you're saying now sounds like a government defrauding itself. But let's go on a break, we'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We still have our guest in the studio. Tucker had a question. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, South Africa has over 50% of its tax remittance done online using technology. But it seems like we have a disjointed approach towards the use of technology in tax processing. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group shows that only 1% of taxpayers are registered with the FIRS online platform. Their self-assessment process. So what are you doing to encourage the use of technology, which I think we have, by many of our citizens?
Okay, thank you very much. It's quite a good observation, but I think that was before we came on board in 2019. And even before 2019 December that we were appointed, FIRS has invested a lot in technology. But one thing is for you to invest, and another thing is for you to get the buy-in of the tax-paying public to making sure that they use the appropriate tools that you are provided by way of technology for tax administration. So what we have done, what we have done now is to get the Finance Act 2020 to have a provision in it, which has now given us, as a service, the power to use technology for purpose of tax administration. So what we mean by that is that going forward, we are going to deploy technology in whatever we do for purpose of filing of returns, for purpose of payment of tax liabilities, for purpose of assessment, collection, and also for accounting for taxes that we're collecting. So what have we done practically to ensure that this happen? We have rolled out our own in-house technology, which everybody know about, Tax Pro Max, and which is going forward going to be used for purpose of this tax administration. Because one of the requirements of the law also is that we should not just deploy technology, we should deploy proprietary technology, which is the technology that we own ourselves. And that is exactly what we have done. The third step we have equally taken now is to segment compliance with this provision of the Finance Act 2020. So what we have done is to say we have three segments of taxpayers: the large, the medium, and the small and micro taxpayers. So what we have done for this year, we have insisted that all the companies that belongs to, or ministry department agents that belong to large taxpayer segment should, going forward, file its return, make its own tax payment, apply for its own TCC online, real-time, without further giving us paper returns. Right. So we've started that. And we're moving, secondly, to the issue of, to the segment that we call medium tax. So these two segments, we are confident that by the end of this year, and they are the major taxpayers, because these two segments are the people that pay up to 85% of the taxes, that their tax filing, their tax payment, request for tax clearance, answer to reply to queries they will receive online from us, and probably even audit will be done online, right, using our own in-house technology, Tax Pro Max.
Let me ask you this question, because I know that Nigeria has one of the lowest tax revenue profile in the world, and I know our budget is dependent a lot on tax remittances. I know we had initially, I think it was the second revenue expectation from the federal government from our budget, and I'm just worried because how realistic is it? We have it in paper that we expect to get a certain amount of money from taxes. But how are you meeting your target? And because remember, your revenue from this is supposed to feed our budget. How realistic are we meeting this target?
Thank you very much, my sister. Not just the target. If the taxpayers are truthful, honest, and will deduct these taxes and remit as at when due, or compute or file tax return by way of self-assessment and make their own tax payment in good time, will even generate more than the government require, the 13 trillion it requires for purpose of it required to implement its budget for 2021. All over the world, tax is number one source of revenue for every government, all over the world, except Nigeria. And the reason you know better than I do is that we were born into oil money. We all came to Nigeria through our parents and meet oil money that suggests that nobody should work, nobody should pay taxes. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19, we've now realized, with the negative impact of COVID-19, we've now realized that this concept that we're very rich a country is not true. One thing is for you to have potential, and another thing is for you to be very rich. So we are not rich, because if we are rich, by the time we had this COVID-19, the government would have been able to roll out a lot of palliative to the taxpayers or the ordinary citizen, just like the developed countries are doing. So the number one source of revenue for every country on earth has been taxation. So how do they achieve it? One of the key ways to achieve this is the economic activities and the population of a country. So what those countries did is that, or have been doing, is that they have shifted base from direct taxes to indirect taxes. Indirect taxes are taxes that you as an agent of collection is asked, you are asked to collect on behalf of government, e.g. value-added tax. When you walk into a supermarket, you want a bottle of water. By the time you give out your card, that and some other exemptions, by the time you give out your card, making payment for this, the things you have taken from the shelf in the supermarket, what you are paying is not just the price of the good alone. What you are equally paying is the value-added tax that supermarket has been appointed to collect on behalf of the government. But the issue has been, when they collect, they don't remit. And that is why we have rolled out this publication.
Okay.
And the moment we're able to do that, being the first economy in Africa, we should be able to have enough money to implement our budget at all levels.
All right. Chairman Mohammed, so I know generally it's expected that these sort of sanctions would stimulate voluntary compliance. But I want to ask you, do you think this will work, considering the fact that government as well is a major debtor?
Can you come again?
I said the reason for this sort of sanctions is to stimulate voluntary compliance from different companies. So you are giving out the sanctions so that they will want to pay and not go through the stress of having to pay extra or be fined. But how do you think this will work, knowing that the government themselves and not the ministries, departments, and agencies are also a part of this problem?
See, tax collection, tax administration, tax payment globally is a very difficult thing to do. You will discover that in so many countries in the world, taxmen, just like we have in our own establishment act, move with gun to collect taxes, even in the developed economies. Even the most popular economies that we visit, until they use gun, people don't voluntarily come to pay taxes. But now that we are trying to emulate what they are doing in their country to be successful, by making sure that we sanction those that do not pay their taxes as I want you, I think the compliance level will go up. Bear in mind, my sister, that you, just like the example I have given, you have walked into a supermarket, just like the student in the Unilag or a student in Ahmadu Bello University who have walked into a supermarket. He has bought goods. And then the agent, which is the owner of the supermarket, has taken value-added tax from this poor shopper. But unfortunately, he or she refuses to remit it to the coffers of government. I think for fairness, because one of the principles of taxation is fairness, we should be able to say no to such a practice so that we insist that the moment you collect this money from this poor man, you are already a rich man. And that is why you are able to come up with a company which government equally use in appointing you as an agent of collection. Let me give you another scenario. You own a house and I am the tenant. Then maybe my sister next to you is the agent. Is it fair for her to collect rent from me? And equally in that rent, there is maybe 5%, which should ordinarily be her own agency fee. And after collecting this money from me, being an appointed agent by you, your agent keep both the agency fee and the rent itself to himself. Is it possible for you to sit down and allow your agent to continue to do that to you? I think it is not proper. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, let me take this call, sir. Good morning, Folu. Are you still there? You've been holding for a while. I'm so sorry, Folu, for keeping you. Let me go on a quick break. When you come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. So we still have our guest with us. Tope had a question for the break. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask concerning the amount of money that falls within the cracks of corruption within the system. And another gap is contractual revenue collection people who negotiate for themselves as well as the government. I've heard stories that agents are used by contracts divided into location, and they go around to try to collect the tax from businesses, but they offer negotiations within their reach. And a lot of funds are lost through those taxes. People pay, but it does not really go to the government. So what is the FIRS doing to tighten the gap so that the revenue that comes to the government increases?
Okay, thank you very much. I think for every situation you find yourself, it's just like a law of contract. There is always a situation of an offer and probably an issue of acceptance. Yes. I want to blame the two parties there to have committed fraud and to also have short-term Nigerians. You as a business owner, if you are faithful, before the tax administration will come to look at your book, you would have done the needful. And when he comes in, he will never be able to see any tax liability, because when they get to look at your book, you have a turnover of 10 million. Value-added tax is 750,000. You have declared that in the course of your monthly returns to FIRS. There will never be any basis for any negotiation. So the first thing is the business owner that have offered this money, and it's a crime also for the FIRS staff to accept the offer that has been given. We have started at our own level, and they are also aware that it is no longer business as usual. And that is what helped us in the year 2020, that even when practically the economy was locked down for about 4 or 5 months, we still got about 98% of our target. It is a fact that there are corrupt practices all over places, whether it's revenue authorities that has to do with the local government and those local revenue authorities that have to do with the state, or the one that I currently manage, the federal revenue. But the key issue is that there is always an intention to cheat on the tax of the taxpayer, and that is what lay a good foundation or lays a basis for what you have described corrupt practice in the course of this. But I want Nigerians to also know that for every tax payment, it is not there in the law anymore. And there is, since the year 2007 Establishment Act of FIRS, payment of taxes are never done by cash. The payment of taxes are never done by check. Payments are done by the taxpayer themselves in the bank or through the mediums provided using digital means now. Right. So if there is money to be paid and it doesn't get to the coffers of government, you don't blame FIRS staff for that, because it is not expected of you in the first place to give money to anybody other than your own staff to go to the bank to remit sent to the Federation account.
Let me take this call from Hassan. You've been holding for a while. Hassan, are you there?
Yeah, good morning,
everybody. Good morning. You're live. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, the Director General of Federal Inland Revenue. Please, I have a question here. This issue of non-deduction or non-remittance by concerned agencies of government is not only limited to government. Even the private sectors are culpable. The banks, we are shareholders. They deducted taxes from our dividends before giving us the remaining change. It is your own responsibility and your members of staff, because I'm seeing it as a failure of human resources on your own side for your people to go there and take their money that does not belong to them from them for the use of the federal government of Nigeria. Because if the money is remitted, we have no reason whatsoever to take loan. We have no reason whatsoever for anybody to bypass TFA. Private sectors are culpable. The MDAs are culpable here. And even the Nigerians also are culpable.
Right.
And your staff are culpable also, because some of your staff are also in the habit of frustrating taxpayers. And what are you doing, Mr. Rani, about?
Right. Yes, there are quite a lot of questions. I'd like you to.
I wanted to know. So there's a tweet saying that this is a bit too far, that the attempt by the FIRS to go into accounts and deduct unremitted taxes is a little bit too far. That, withholding or remitting taxes in the first place is a crime. Why not just prosecute defaulters? Why go into their account to take the money?
Okay, thank you very much, my sister and the person that called. I appreciate his comment very well. And it is on realization of the youth by everybody that we've decided to ensure that now we're going to prosecute taxpayers or tax offenses. Let me not even put it that way. What we have done is that we have declared our intention publicly to prosecute taxpayers for non-compliance with tax law, regulation, and other related tax offenses, especially those that are listed in Part 4 of the FIRS Establishment Act 2007 as amended. These offenses include but are not limited to tax evasion, tax fraud, failure to deduct or remit tax, obstruction, false declaration, counterfeiting of document, failure to file tax returns, etc. The person that called, unfortunately, I don't have his name. We are all guilty of everything we have said, but this is not limited to, just like you rightly said, to FIRS staff. The intention from the onset is from the agent of collections. The intention is to cheat, because, like I said before, the indirect taxes, that is the emphasis of National Tax Policy Document of 2017. So it's an easy thing to do. You are appointed as an agent, collect this money on behalf of government, remit. The moment that remittance is done by either an agency of government, by a body corporate, like the place you have invested in shares, there will not be need for, or there will not be room for these sharp practices by both taxpayers, the government, ministry, department, agencies, and the tax administrator. So the appeal, and that is the narrative we want to change. And that is what we want to do now by invoking the provision of Section 49, subsections 2 of our Establishment Act, and or prosecute all relevant persons involved in the management of the affairs of non-compliant company, firm or association. We're not going to leave it at just deducting money from your own account. Even if you are a director in this company, you are a DG in this ministry, department, and agencies, we are not playing here. We'll go ahead to even name and shame you and possibly report you to regulatory agencies or enforcement agencies like Economic and Finance, EFCC, ICPC, and the Nigerian police. We all have executed MOU with these people. It is not going to be business as usual. Yeah. Like I said before, we cannot be the first economy in Africa, yet have not been able to generate, even with huge potential, even with a huge transaction base, even with the quality and size of our population, generate enough revenue to fund our budgetary requirements.
Mr. Chairman, you know, this is really painful for someone like me to hear, because we were still talking recently that this country would only develop if the elites decide to really develop this country. Because the truth is that the foot soldiers, the regular citizens, will pay taxes somehow or the other. Either you read from our salaries, or from like you said, the indirect, when you go to the supermarket, you want to buy groceries, and they take it out. So whether we like it or not, we, the foot soldiers, will pay the taxes. But it's the next layer that I'm hearing the problem.
Yes, that is the point we are making.
So it's the next layer.
As consumers of this product that are sold in the supermarket, of the services that the telecommunications, the communication companies render, you have no control over the charge that the telecommunication company charge you when you make call to me. But the bottom line, for every 1 minute call you do, for this conversation we're doing via Zoom, myself, you people are paying for these services.
Chairman, I get that,
and
because
VAT element, there are tax elements in these bills you pay. The challenge has been, why are they keeping this money without remitting? And government continue to move from pillar to post to borrow money to fund the budgetary requirement. We talk about insecurity. We talk about lack of road. We talk about lack of right. How would government do it when the money that belongs to government is in your hands? So this is the challenge.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for clarifying, because I want Nigerians to understand what we're saying. Because sometimes when we say these things, it flies over their heads. So we, the people, are paying those taxes. Is that second layer, remittance to the MDAs, from the MDAs to the federal coffers? That's the issue. And these people are pocketing this money for different things. And it's important that this kind of show makes Nigerians understand the importance, the gravity of what we're doing. We're defaulting ourselves as a people. So we, the people, are paying, but that second layer is not remitting, and that's a problem. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's important that we get that clarity. I'll let you go for now, but I'd like to open our phone lines and tweets and just let Nigerians call in, because it's important we see our role in this issue of decadence. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about we need money. Our entire budget is dependent on this revenue. So we're here waiting for oil money. Oil money is dwindling. The second layer is supposed to be
it's gone.
This tax.
It's gone. It's not.
And we can't get these taxes. We can't get these taxes if people are not remitting. So that's a problem. You're pocketing our money.
Agencies are not remitting.
So it goes beyond just the MDAs. The MDAs are doing their part. I noticed that it kept going back to supermarkets. So there are many private companies who deduct value-added taxes. A lot of businesses do it. I'm in the real estate industry. I am working with a company. The company wants to pay me, deducts the VAT, but are they remitting?
Withholding tax.
Yes. They withdraw a withholding tax, but they don't pay to the government. So I am made to pay that amount of money. And there are many of them. Contracts are awarded by private companies, and they want to pay you for your contract. They would withhold the tax, but they're not remitting. So it trickles all round the government, and we are doing ourselves. And I think that's the point Mariah is trying to make, which the chairman also made, is it's affecting us. Yeah. That is why the government, a lot of budget, we spoke to the minister, for, whenever we have a conversation with Minister Fashola, he would mention the fact that the budget, they could not fund these roads. The budget, it's there, there's allocation, but there is no money to be disbursed for those roads. So we might complain about some things, but the government really can't afford it. We are not that rich. Actually, we are not rich. So we need to...
We have the potentials, but the money is not in the hand of government.
Thank you very much for this clarity. I have to roll, but thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much. Do you have any tweets, Nima?
Who says, even those way they collect from us, kill efficient, that's they've not been using, executing.
Nima, I'd like to address that because you see, that's the Nigerian street conversation that we have, and nothing gets done. The ones you've collected, what have you done with it? Yes, there's that narrative, no doubt about it. It's a narrative that exists, and nobody's going to argue that. But the truth is, there's nowhere in the world that gets developed without taxes. So with that, we face the reality that we need to pay taxes and develop, or we keep that narrative, or the ones they've collected, what have they done with this? Listen, we can do that for the next 20 years. And
our attitude will change when our money is going there. You see, it's a different thing. The confidence of my conversation whenever I'm talking about Lagos State and my expectations of the government is different, because I know I'm paying my taxes to Lagos State. When you are paying your tax, you are more emboldened to demand from how they are spending the money. When you're not paying, it is government money, it is oil money, but it's from your pocket. You paid that tax. Men, you need to hold them more accountable.
Most people are talking, they don't pay taxes.
They are not even captured. But the regular people pay taxes. People like us who are working, they find a way to get away this tax. Even those that are doing business, we filed our, you are selling rice now, me, I'm selling something. We found, we filed our tax and everything. We do that. The majority of the regular people pay the tax. The problem is a lot of them are not captured. For those that are not paying are not captured. Now, the ones that they have paid are not being remitted to the government. So the government themselves are part of the problem because their agencies and their ministries are owing as well. So we need to remit the ones they have paid.
You have to run, Nima, go ahead.
Just to try and make case for most of these people talking, you have your taxes deducted from your company as your payee, your withholding tax and whatever, and your company didn't remit it. Yes. Companies constantly deduct this money. So when they are frustrated like this, they think the money has been given to government. And we know the level of corruption within government too is discouraging. But this tweet is more better. Maja says, let the FIRS look inwards. A lot of fraud and corruption within the system. Officers of FIRS collect bribe and make companies pay less to government while the companies settle their
we have to run, unfortunately, but I think these things are in various layers, right? So there's the MDAs, there's the private corporations. Let them remit first. After they remit, hopefully then we can now start looking for the other loopholes and covering those gaps. But the key ones are the MDAs, the private companies. Please remit to the government
taxes, or they will collect it from your. That's what they have said.
All right, that's what I can say on the show. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.